a common origin, but in fact those features may have arisen independently. And because birds are bipedal and because dinosaurs are bipedal, there's certain biomechanical constraints that indicate that they should have common anatomical similarities. So it could be convergence as opposed to homology. Again, that's another point of contention. And part of that argument relates to the structure of the foot. While again the theropod foot and the bird foot superficially look the same, fundamentally they actually are different structures. And that's part of the argument for why this may be an example of convergence, not homology. So, the point here is that there's a number of things that we need to keep in mind as we think about this whole question of did birds and dinosaurs share a common evolutionary history. I don't think this particular find, as beautiful a fossil as it is and as interesting a fossil as it is, necessarily brings the story to a close because there's just a lot of controversy surrounding this.
Yeah.
And if it's not a bird-dinosaur connection, the only other option then is that somehow a reptile of some sort gave rise to birds, but that again is also with problems. So there's not a clean evolutionary model, in my view, to account for the origin of birds from an evolutionary standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very nicely explained there. Now, here's a challenging question for you. Someone might say, Dr. Rana, your expertise is in biochemistry. You like cell membranes. You're an expert in that. Now, why not give this person here, is it Jingzhu, is that how you pronounce? Let's give him credit. He's saying here that this resolves the paradox, the temporal paradox, and let's say those dates are within range there. He knows what he's talking about. Who are you to come along and say, well, I call into question his dates?
Well, that's a valid point. But what I'll point out here is that, number one, everything that I've said is a controversy that has been written about by other evolutionary biologists who are interested in the question of bird origins. So none of the critique that I'm bringing to the table is, in a sense, originating with me. I'm just simply reporting on it. But I would argue that being a scientist gives me the training to be able to look at data and to draw conclusions from the data. I may not be able to do a detailed anatomical analysis of the feathered dinosaur or do a detailed characterization in terms of how does it fit in an evolutionary context. That's indeed outside of my range of expertise and training, and so I would defer to the experts in terms of what they would draw conclusions. But from a data analysis standpoint, if you have uncertainty in the data and you're comparing two data points with uncertainty, you have to take into account the range of uncertainty, and if the ranges overlap, then in a sense those two data points are considered to be equivalent. That's how you would interpret it. So I'm just simply applying what I think to be reasonable and sound data analysis. Mm-hmm. Now, in a sense, I have some sympathy for the scientists making those claims because you want to put your work in the best possible light. And so that's what he's attempting to do, is say, hey, I think we've got solution to the temporal paradox here with this particular specimen. So he's trying to make the specimen appear to be as important as possible. That's just part of scientific posturing. I don't look at it as being dishonest or disingenuous,
right.
Or would never accuse him of being that. He wants to put his data in the best light. Everybody does that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how you justify the work you've done and the money that people have invested in your work and how you get recognition.
Yeah.
So he's, playing the scientific game, if you will.
Yeah. As a final question, when it comes to the recovery site, you mentioned that it comes down to a farmer where he think he might have picked it up. Can't they go to everywhere that farmer went? And what are the possible variations in that? In the dating there, is it tens of millions of years? Is it a few million?
It's hard to know,
really?
Because if he's thinking that the specimen is actually from a lower layer than it is, then it would date to be older. And of course you also have, the geological formations are not necessarily uniform, and so you could probably take a look at the mineral associated with the fossil, and then look at the geological formation for comparable mineral profiles if he thinks this is where it is, those are ways that you could confirm that. But again, there's always that element of uncertainty. Now, hopefully, these scientists are going to go back to the site and actually conduct excavations and themselves, where they're going to look for recovering these fossil specimens from the site where the farmer thinks this was recovered from. But, the fact of the matter is, fossils represent a very valuable commodity. There are people who are fossil collectors who will, pay huge amounts of money for specimens like this. And so farmers recognize that, and so they will collect these things, and instead of turning them over to the scientific community and acknowledging them as scientific treasures where they basically get nothing for them, they're going to sell them to a dealer who will pay them handsomely for this, and will turn around and sell these to collectors for huge amounts of money. So there is a black market trade in fossil specimens. And in fact, maybe it was about 8 years ago, there was a famous situation where a Chinese farmer from this same location recovered what was considered to be a key transitional form in the bird dinosaur model, and it was called Archaeoraptor. And it turned out that this was a fossil that this farmer kind of glued pieces together to make it look to be more impressive than it was. And it wound up in the hands of a collector, and then a scientist got a hold of it and characterized it and claimed they had the missing link. National Geographic paid for this work and published this and made these claims, and later on they realized that they had to retract it. And it wasn't that, again, it was sloppy science. It was the fact that these scientists were, in a sense, duped by a farmer who was just simply trying to feed his family and realized this is what collectors want, so I'm going to take these pieces and produce what a collector wants.
Enterprising farmer there.
And somebody bought it on the black market. And then it wound up in scientists' hands. Well, I don't think anything like this is necessarily going on here, but it highlights the fact that if you're not, the scientists who are part of the team, or have confidence in the team that collected the specimen, then you can never be certain that the dates that you have actually reflect the actual date of that specimen. There's always that nagging uncertainty, and so I don't know that I would want to overemphasize that point, but it is something that has to be kept in mind.
Okay. Fascinating stuff. As bottom line, in your mind, it does not solve this temporal paradox.
No,
and
I
then
don't.
all the other issues
Don't think so.
remain as well. For people who want to delve into this, you've spoken and written variously on this through the years. If someone did a search on our site, bird, dinosaur.
Yes, exactly. I think we may even have that as a topic.
Yeah.
If people get into our website and look at the topics, I think they may even find that. And a number of articles that we've written, a number of podcasts that we've done, not only with Creation Update, which people currently can't access, but hopefully in the near future they can access from our website, or if they go through the Science Newsflash program list, they'll see a number of studies like this that we've commented on. So a lot on our website that people can access.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Appreciate your comments. Thanks for listening to Science Newsflash with Dr. Fuzz Rana. For more information and resources, visit reasons.org.
This podcast is made possible through support from individuals like you. To learn more about supporting Reasons to Believe, go to www.reasons.org/donate or call 800-482-7836.